All right, so this is our last video of the unit 3.7. All right, so we first have to start with a review of 3.6. Remember 3.6 was covalent compounds. So I'm going to give you, go ahead and hit pause here and name the following, the top ones, and then write formulas for the bottom one. And I'll see you at our last page of notes. Awesome. Okay, so we're on our last page of notes and we're talking about the types of bonds. So we've already talked about the types of bonds, so we're going to go a little more in depth with these types of bonds here. So the first type of bond we talked about was an ionic bond. Ionic bond. And this was that attraction between charged particles. All right. Charged particles. So we're talking about an attraction between those. We're talking about ions, really, which makes sense because ionic bond, ions. Okay. This is a bond most often between a metal and a nonmetal, or it could be multiple nonmetals, but either way. All right. Our characteristics here, and we're going to see this in the lab that we do, but we have a high melting point. What that means is it takes a lot of energy, or the temperature has to be really high for it to melt. And that's because it has really strong bonds. All right. It tends to be solid at room temp. All right. Which is, again, those forces of attraction. The other thing is that it tends to conduct electricity. In the aqueous phase. And what that is, the aqueous phase means once it's dissolved in water, it'll conduct electricity. It actually will not conduct electricity as a solid. All right. So now we go on to our covalent bonds. Our covalent bonds, remember, are the sharing of electrons. This is where our electrons are being shared. This is a bond between nonmetals. So these are our nonmetals. Okay. Characteristics here, oh man, they tend to be gases or liquids. And that's because their bonds are so very weak that they don't kind of stay together very well. They are poor conductors, all right? Poor conductors for the most part of heat and electricity. And they have very low melting points, which makes sense if they're going to be gases or liquids because they've already melted. Okay, one last type of bond that we did not talk about, the last type of bond is metallic bonds, and this is just forming a sea of electrons, all right, around the nuclei. Okay, that should be around. And what I think of when I think of this, and it's a pretty good analogy, is I think of like those old-fashioned moats, how the electrons kind of are that sea or that moat around the castle. And then that allows for it to be very, very good conductor. We're kind of skipping around here, but these are good conductors. And this is in the solid state. All right. They also are good conductors in the liquid state as well. The one thing that is, they tend to be solids, right? Obviously. All right. Their melting points kind of vary depending on the metal that you have. So we can't really make a definitive statement there saying that we have a high melting point or a high boiling point. This is obviously a bond between two metals, right? Two or more metals. And the last thing that we have here is that they are alloys. We also have alloys in here, which is just a combination of two or more metals, all right? Brass is an alloy. And that, my friends, is the last page of notes. All right, see ya next unit.